High noon ABC. It is Florida State, a 2.5 point road favorite at the Clemson Tigers, Dan. You did the preview for both of these teams.
I did.
And if memory serves, and correct me if I'm wrong, if memory serves, you picked Clemson many weeks ago.
I did.
To win this game. Has anything you've seen thus far changed your mind on that?
You mean Clemson losing to Duke?
Your words, not mine.
Right. Okay. So the way I look at these types of games, and this is just, in my bones, is, you have a good defense. You're playing at home as a home dog in a tough venue with a tough crowd. Hey, real quick, thanks for stopping by. Now would be a terrific time to subscribe to the Solid Verbal for college football videos all season long. I like siding with that team. The thing that worries me about Clemson right now is that their offense just might not be it, right? That there just is that worry to me that maybe there was a look-ahead factor with Florida State, everything still points to me taking Clemson in this game. 2 road games in a row for Florida State, an escape last week against Boston College that, is an emotional drain, but obviously this is not a look-ahead spot. This is not a letdown spot for Florida State. This game has been circled for quite some time. So I'm still riding... Well, no. I am riding with Florida State, to be clear. I'm switching my pick away from Clemson, my preseason pick away from Clemson, because even last week against FAU, I rewatched, and there was still something janky about, especially that passing game. And there was something like 4 or 5, 3 or 4 and outs for Clemson, some short field touchdowns, that they were clearly better and out everything to FAU, but it wasn't a taking care of business performance like I really would have wanted to see, as this offense should have been getting back on track. And so I just think the ceiling for Florida State, and I also like that it's a nooner, as you mentioned, right? This is an early game. And so if this was our night game, maybe there's something about the frenzied crowd at night, Death Valley. I don't know. I'm going Florida State here. I'm just going with the quarterback advantage. I'm going with what I think is the pass rush advantage. I'm going with what is the offensive skill advantage, offensive line advantage. I'm going with the Noles here to win by, 7-10.
Indulge me for a second, because
Please.
I had the same thought you did about Clemson's passing game, and I took it upon myself to dive into the numbers to figure out what exactly is happening here, because the efficiency numbers that we know and love are actually pretty high for the Clemson offense, but there's almost no explosion here.
No, there's not a lot at all downfield, and it's super disappointing.
It really is. And anytime I see that, I start worrying about a pickleball offense.
Yep.
I start worrying about basically an offense that operates exclusively within like a 10-yard box of the line of scrimmage. Here's what I found with the passing attack. 69% of Clemson's targets have been for less than 9 yards or behind the line of scrimmage, which is a lot. They've only attempted 10 throws of 20 or more yards. And the biggest eye-opener is actually not the big home run hitters, but it's the intermediate stuff, the 10 to 20-yard range. Cade Klubnik is doing well when he throws those routes. He's got about an 88% completion percentage, but it only accounts for 16% of the passing game. So a couple theories as to why it looks that way. Either Cade Klubnik doesn't have time, which actually does compute because Clemson is 93rd nationally in pressure rate allowed. So opposing defenses are getting to him.
Right. That hence the offensive line advantage. Yeah.
Right. He also could just be missing guys. He is a first-time starting quarterback. I don't have the tape to break that down and tell you one way or another, but I suppose that's another logical conclusion. They also could just not have receivers who are winning in space.
I don't think they do. Yeah.
Because that's been a thing for the last couple of years. And you heard that, I think, a strong chorus of folks chiming in about, Dabo needs to go out and use the portal to get a receiver. And they have not had the T. Higgins type receiver who can go up and win the jump balls in quite some time.
Right.
So there could be an element of receivers just aren't winning in space. Again, I don't know. I'd like for someone who has access to the tape and someone who actually knows what they're looking at with root trees and whatnot to tell me.
They're going 3 and out. They're not even moving the ball 10, 12 yards on some of these drives. And it's a 1-game sample against FAU, and maybe they weren't showing anything against the Owls. Yeah. But at the same time, you got to be able to move the ball more than that. Like, I'm nitpicking because they scored, 48 points, and that's not the entirety of their being. But I don't know. They just don't seem like a team capable of taking care of business against decent teams, let alone Florida State.
And look, the other option is maybe this is just what the offense is now.
Yeah.
And I think this is the least likely reason. Usually Clemson is 50 to 55% with the short passes, not 69%.
Yeah.
So something's off. This is all my very, very long way of saying that if all their plays are within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, they're not going to beat Florida State.
Right.
It doesn't matter what the rationale is. They're not going to win this game. 82% of the people who are watching live selected Florida State -2.5. Dan Rubenstein, you selected Florida State -2.5.
Yeah.
I've got Florida State comfortably, like 34-17, something of that nature.
To be clear, Clemson won this game last year in Tallahassee, did they not?
Yeah.
And probably more comfortably than that score indicated. And so this was not a great Clemson team last year, still won the ACC. That quarterback has left, right? We'll get to him later when we talk Oregon State Wazoo. And so there is an element of Clemson should be somewhat confident, especially in their defense, having enough answers for Florida State's offense. Now, I still think this is a better Florida State offense this year than it was last year with that kind of experience, and a better offensive line. And obviously adding Keon Coleman into the mix is a bit of calculus that you can't look at from last year.
Right.
But I just think Florida State's the better team with the better quarterback with fewer questions. And I love that it's a nooner.